Welcome back on board the Starship. I'm talking with John Irwin, who was part of a British assassination squad in the Middle East in the late 1950s. Now, we've described basically how you got into the army, and a lot of people will find it really almost implausible that someone who was in the Pioneer Corps, a lad doing his basic training, was picked out and then put in this group and given very specific training to go around the Middle East basically murdering people. Now, let's just come on to some of the missions that you were sent to. So the 524 company, they didn't know anything about. You were given papers to disappear for a week or 2 weeks or 3 days or 4 days or whatever.
On attachment.
On attachment.
Yeah.
And you were part of this group of 4. So we'll go into the actual specific training, but I want to discuss that at the end. So we'll go through the 4 missions that you did during that time. The first one was in the Troodos Mountains, where you were told...
That was to test my skills that I had been programmed to do.
So the intelligence had that there was some is it Iorka terrorists in the Troodos Mountains who'd been...
Iorka terrorists, yeah.
They'd been,
supplying
forwarding ammunition and stuff, and you had to go and take them out.
Yeah.
So briefly tell us that mission there, John.
Okay, we were told that there was a gang of Iorka terrorists somewhere in the mountains, right? Mm-hmm. And our job was, that had been pinpointed. We knew where we were going. Mm-hmm. So anyway, eventually the 4 of us went there. Mm-hmm. We had to come in sort of the back door, because the front of the cave where they were in, it wasn't very big, this cave, by the way. They could just get a sort of a truck in the entrance of it, and that's where they stored their ammunition and rifles and what have you, and explosives. So we had to come in from behind, so I had to abseil down.
Right. So the whole idea is to try and take them out without firing a bullet, so therefore you don't alert everyone else that might be there that might come to their aid. So it's all about creeping up on them.
Well, there's villages,
yeah,
all over. And there was also, like I say, a radar station at the very top end of the mountains, So I had no idea what these Greeks were planning. Our job was to eliminate them, you see. So, like I say, we came in the back door, so to speak, on this little ledge, and worked our way around behind them by abseiling down these cliffs, where there was sort of cracks in the side of the caves, but we weren't sure which one would bring me into the back door where they were. So there's one I went into, and when I squeezed through it, I saw don't forget this is at night, but the moon's, there was moonlight, and I did see a little beam of light coming in through the top when I got inside. But the water was pouring in. There was water everywhere. It was like a shower inside this cave, and I could see it went in a fair distance. So when I got in, it was dark, and we had torches, but we had to be careful, make sure the enemy didn't see the light. I scrambled my way in and found that it came to a dead end, so I had to come back out. But there was like a pile of dirt, or like gravel, piled up where the ceilings had caved in with water. And when I was coming out, a dog appeared, white dog, and it was growling on us, and I couldn't get out quick enough, really. So, it started to slide on the shale, and it had to come for us whether they liked it or not. And I had to kill the dog, and there was ways of doing it. When I killed the dog,
you kill it with a knife.
Yeah, I killed it with a knife. Yeah. Wrapped my coat around my arm, bent down on my knees, so went for my arm, and before it gets with my arm, I killed it, sort of thing, but it knocked us against the wall. It wasn't that easy. You understand? It was like a ton of bricks hitting us, bashed us against the wall, and Dynamo came in and helped to drag the dog off us, and when I got up and we made our way back out of the cave, I heard this noise, and I wasn't sure what it was. So I wanted to go back in, and he says, I said, look, it could be them. This dog might belong to them. It's not, it's a wild dog, I said, look, it could be. So let's. I went back in, and I climbed up this shale, I was keep sliding down. When I got to the top and looked over the top, there was puppies. There was
Right.
2 little puppies there. So I obviously killed the mother. And so anyway, I left them there for
We've
the
got a
time being,
photograph of you with the 2 puppies
Yeah.
there, which you brought back to
to the camp.
your camp.
I sneaked them in, yeah.
You sneaked them in, and you got into trouble about that. But after you'd killed the dog, you eventually...
After we killed the Joe,
finished the mission.
eventually we found the back entrance into this cave.
Uh-huh.
And it was very, very similar to the first one we went in.
Right.
We had to squeeze our way through. And Chalky, who had got himself hung up on the abseil, and had
You left him hanging there for
we left-
several hours.
Well,
until-
because half the embankment had caved away, and we couldn't see, so he had to hang there
Right.
until it got
daylight,
light enough.
yeah.
It wasn't actually daylight, but it was light enough to see him. So he walked around towards the front of the cave, and we went through the back. And inside this cave was again piles up of muck, and there was a gap between the ceiling and this pile of dirt. And we got up there and we could see into this cave where they were, and they were sitting around this fire and talking to each other, you know.
Right.
So we made the decision then was we rolled down. We couldn't walk down. We had to roll down.
Right.
And when we rolled down, we sprung up in front of them, and they were really surprised. You know, they had no idea we were there. And later one of them brought a gun out, and I disarmed them. And
Right.
and like I said,
So there's 4 of them, and you basically killed them.
kill them all.
But
Yeah.
Just to touch on the method that you use, John, it's all about getting very close to someone and then being able to essentially manipulate them with your body and disarm them, control them. We'll go into that.
Yeah.
So you basically broke the guy's neck,
Yeah.
and the other 2.
He actually fell into when he fell, his arm fell into the fire.
Right.
And like I said, this was the first time, the first kill, if you like.
Right.
And I jumped over his body and kicked his hand out of the fire. And Dynamo and them just looked at us and started smiling, you know.
Right.
I must just say, well, you know, he's dead, like, you know.
Right.
But
So
I put that much energy in it, which I didn't really need.
So there was various equipment that you had. You had this special belt which you could
sash.
release, it's called a sash, that would come out very quickly. and
See,
you could-
we mainly wear that when we're not wearing, we're not carrying other weapons.
Right.
You see, so we normally carry boot knives and a pistol.
So the other terrorists
Nothing
were
but
killed
it.
by your colleagues then?
Yeah.
That was it. So, I mean, how did that feel after you killed this guy? I mean, did you have much remorse over it, or was it just, what was
No,
it?
like I said, the program that they put us through.
Uh-huh.
How can I explain it? I didn't feel guilty about it. Put it that way.
Right.
You understand? I felt as though it had to be done, and I was rather surprised when I did it, because it seemed to come quite natural, and it was all had something to do with the program.
So you then went back to 524 Company, and you were digging. Did you go back to digging ditches and stuff, or were you still in the?
Yeah,
Were you still a waiter then, or
This
what was?
this little sergeant really had it in for me, like, you know.
Right.
If there was a trench to be dug, this guy had me in it, you know.
Right.
And he always wanted to know how I managed to get up the camp, because he used to try and plan to keep us in the camp, you know.
So in this particular mission, the 4 of you got in a helicopter piloted by Ken.
Yeah.
Took you out.
No, it was yeah. Well, there was another pilot there, but
All right, there's another pilot there.
yeah, it's part of the 16.
Right.
Each group. Let's
So
say you had 8, which were our intelligence, who was scattered
Right.
about
So
various countries. Yeah.
the group there was 16 people in the group, although you barely met most of them. You were mainly just
Yeah,
working with this 4, and 8 of them were used.
4 plus Ken, which was 5.
Right. So the other 8 would be used for example, going into a country and hiding supplies that the other groups maybe needed.
That's right.
all
The
right.
intelligence group. Yeah.
So they took you out on this helicopter for this particular mission, where obviously you
Dropped
planned.
into a small boat and
You
then
dropped
took
into a
me,
boat,
yeah.
and then you walked 9 miles to Beirut.
Okay, it was called Operation Pinprick.
Yeah.
Well, see, the idea was to eliminate
So you were in
this guy.
plain clothes. You were darked up to look like Asians with your hair darked and everything.
Yeah, slightly. It wasn't that much, you know what I mean? There was other Westerners there in this little small town. It's like a marketplace where we were. And
so there was one particular man you had to kill, basically.
That's right, yeah.
Who was armed but with 2 guards. So what do you know who
well, there was
he was?
3 guards.
or-
There was 2 guards behind him and 1 in
Right.
front. And what they did was they escorted this guy down to this little cafe, where I think he meets up with other people. I'm not quite sure, but he was obviously very important.
Right. So but you don't know who
I've
he
no
was,
idea,
or
no.
whether he was a scientist or a politician or a military person.
No,
or,
no idea at all.
I think you said he was in his early 40s.
Yeah,
Right. So this was in Beirut in 1958. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you had a high tensile steel needle.
What looked like
with
a hat pin, yeah, with
like
a
a
piece
hat
of wood.
pin with a wooden handle on
Yeah,
it.
so it wouldn't go through back into my hand, yeah.
Right. And did that have poison on it then? Or?
No.
Right.
The object of the exercise was, how do you kill a guy who's escorted by 3 professional soldiers?
Right.
So the setup was, I had to bump into them in some way, shape or form, and
So
the
this
basic
was
moves
quite
I
a
did.
busy street, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah,
So-
yeah,
so
it was a lot of people. Yeah, lots of
around.
people. Yeah, they were pushing people out the way to get by.
Yeah.
And I bought this. I picked up this carpet. Well, it's not actually a carpet. It's something you put over the back of the settees. It looks like a carpet.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
got it's got deer and things like that on it. Well, I picked one of them and put it on my arm, and I did that because I was working out what to do, because I could see the guy coming, and when he came, he actually went down this side street first. And I thought, oh Jesus, he's not coming. He was supposed to come.
Right.
You see, because I've been waiting there for some time, and I made an effort to catch up with him, but then he suddenly came around the corner again, and I had to dash back to this little place where they were selling these carpets, and there was women in that there as well, Westerners, you know. And when he got when the first guard passed us, I picked the carpet up and turned around with this material, caught the guy in the face, and then sank this needle through here.
So you push the needle into his heart.
Yeah,
Right.
it just breaks the skin.
Right.
But measured it, so when my hand came up against his chest, it would be exactly right, you see. So the idea is to puncture the bag around the heart,
Right.
right? And he wouldn't feel that. It would be done so quickly,
Right.
right? I had to make sure it didn't catch the ribs, and the machine, as we call it, enables me to do that, which
Right.
I'll demonstrate to you
Yeah.
how it's actually done, and prove that it can be done. It sounds like a bit of a fairy tale, but it's true. And anyway, Dynamo was across the other side of the road doing this, and I'm saying, I don't know.
Right, so
you know, is it?
So you thought you'd got him, and then he.
Well, I knew it would
continued
take
to
some
walk.
time.
Right.
I knew it would take some time. That was the whole object of the exercise. We didn't want the guy to drop down there in front of us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have probably shot us or took us prisoner. We knew it would take time. So anyway, but he had walked quite a distance, and they were looking at me and saying, well, you know, because we couldn't see because of the crowds. So I stood on this pile of carpets, and this gadget was really, you know, doing his knuckles. I was standing on his carpets, and I had to do that, look down, and all I could see was the white hat that he was wearing, and a whitish hat, and then I saw him collapse.
Right.
And that's when the thumbs went up. You know, it's obviously been.
So you then walked back the 9 mile to your pickup point, and then you got the boat and then the helicopter.
That's
and
right.
et cetera.
Yeah.
So briefly, we'll just touch on the other mission, which was in Cairo, where you got the helicopter across to Egypt, and you had an 80-mile journey. to
85
boat-
miles,
85 miles, where you was partly on foot. You stole a boat.
To avoid, because don't forget, it's only a year and a half prior to that that the
Suez.
Israelis had bombed Egypt.
Right. Yeah. So you stole this boat, and then you stole a truck, and you killed the guys in the truck.
Yeah. Well,
And
Well, the guys came out of the truck when they saw us coming out from these reeds.
Yeah.
And we killed them. And I'd actually taken some of the fingers off one of the guys. And
That was with the sash.
Yeah.
So you then
So then we buried these guys on the side of the river, and some were thrown into
Right.
the river.
And then when you got to Cairo, the mission was to take out one particular guy. Well, it says in the book that it was to take out this guy, but you were actually trying to retrieve some an artifact or a technology of some sort.
That's right.
But you weren't sure what that was, but we'll come on to that. So I mean, that particular raid where there was a derelict building next to the military building that
Well, it was a building that had been struck by the Israelis. Yeah.
Right, it had been bombed, so it had a hole through it, and it was outside of the military compound that you were trying to get into in the middle of Cairo.
Yeah, well, it was actually, it was a building that had been surrounded by barbed wire fencing,
Right.
which had like 2 barbed wire fences about 11, 12 feet high, barbed wire with a dog patrol in between the two.
And you used a crossbow to fire a light line across, which you then
special pickups,
which you then put a heavier line across.
That's
and you can then, what's the word you use when you go down
rappel.
Yeah. So you then got onto the roof, and then you got in, and you.
Long story short.
I'm trying to. Do you know what I mean? I know it's all
in the book.
It's all explained in the book. But now that particular raid,
yeah.
John, that was when I was reading that. That was probably. I'm thinking it definitely does sound like a film. Do you know what I mean?
Sounds like a fairy tale.
So a lot of people would. I mean, do people come up to you after they've read the book and say, "Well, actually, John, I don't believe you"?
Yeah, of course I do.
Right. So, and what do you say to them?
Well, that's entirely up to them.
Right.
Anybody, what I say of importance, such as military who are being approached by, right, the regiment, as they all call it, who's been up and seen us, wanted to see these skills, and they're very, very impressed by them. In fact, they wanted to buy them off us and just exploit, and I wouldn't give them it, which I've got documented proof of that. And the skill that we actually used in that particular operation, where we get into this room, right? It's 11 o'clock at night, by the way. The guy sitting at the desk, we just walk in. Well, of course, one of my team had set fire to this generator in the compound, so all the guards and that were busy trying to put that out. And so what happened was we got into this room, and Dynamo went up and was going to break this guy's neck. It knocked him out, and but we didn't, because there was keys. We've been trained this way, to make it look like suicide. Otherwise, they did with Princess Di.
Either suicide or accident, because if you don't do that, it's very difficult to get out of the place.
You're going to have the Russians, because that's who they were, as well as the Egyptians, would have been, the whole place would have been alive, you see.
All right, John, we're going to go for another break now, and after the break, we're going to talk about the machine and, is it One Step Beyond?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was the name of the training program that you were given.